This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Socialism at the ballot box. Good afternoon. Welcome aboard. Socialist candidates scored big wins last night in the Big Apple.
Abolish ICE. Free Palestine.
3 candidates posted decisive victories over establishment Democrats in primary elections. Brian Yennis with Fox News gets us started.
It's a socialist red wave in New York. 3 big wins in 3 congressional House primaries by far-left candidates endorsed by Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani.
Going down in defeat was a 5-term Democrat who also chaired the Hispanic Congressional Caucus, as well as the Democrat who led the first Trump impeachment trial, Dan Goldman.
Just a few years ago, he was the Democrat Party's dream, right? He built a career off of helping Democrats to try and impeach President Trump. He was their star, and now apparently he's not progressive enough. He's not Marxist enough. He doesn't hate America and our allies enough.
GOP spokeswoman Elizabeth Pipko, Susan Arbetter's host of Capitol Tonight on Spectrum News.
I think voters are very restless. I think they want change. It was not a good night for incumbents. And I also was surprised that some establishment Democrats' coattails, people like Hakeem Jeffries, people like Governor Hochul, their coattails weren't as powerful as, for example, Zohran Mamdani's.
Arbetter says Democrats are lurching more to the left and Republicans are moving farther to the right in the run-up to the November midterms. President Trump meets this afternoon at the White House with the Secretary General of NATO. They'll talk more about ending the war with Iran. There was some confusion today over the role nuclear inspectors will play in post-war Iran. Here's ABC's Rachel Scott.
Vice President J.D. Vance says Iran has agreed to allow nuclear inspections, but Iran's foreign ministry says there are no new plans to let inspectors into their nuclear sites.
They're wrong. They're wrong. They know they're wrong. They told us inside, and we have it down 100% inspections.
Still, President Trump saying there's, quote, no rush for these inspections to begin.
The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency confirming today that plans are in place for nuclear inspectors to go into Iran. Former Israeli Special Ops soldier Aaron Cohen.
If Iran has nothing to hide, let the inspectors in. That's the bottom line. And this is what Iran does. They lie, they deceive, they move equipment. They know that they can continue to drag this out.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio's in the Middle East right now discussing the path forward for Iran.
If Iran makes a decision that they want to be a country instead of a revolutionary movement that exports terror, they're going to have an opportunity to do incredible things in Iran. I'm not promising you that that's the choice they're going to make. I'm saying if that's the choice that they make, then there will be opportunity.
There are reports from inside of Iran today that public executions of political dissidents are on the rise since the pause in fighting was announced. Dr. Sheila Nazarian escaped Iran as a child.
Do I blame America for not having an appetite for a war in the Middle East? I don't. There's only a certain amount of suffering they're willing to do from here. But for those of us that are from that neighborhood who have witnessed the brutality of this regime, when we see negotiations and handshakes with these monsters, it's very difficult to swallow.
Dr. Nazarian says the morality police are on the prowl once again inside Iran. President Trump meeting today for a high-stakes luncheon with Senate Republicans a day after they voted to limit his war powers. The vote largely symbolic, but the president seems irritated nonetheless. He called that vote poorly timed and meaningless, adding that it, quote, just made my job more difficult, end quote. GOP Senators Tim Cassidy, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Rand Paul all voted with Democrats on the resolution. Mr. Trump today will call on Senate Republicans to pass the Save America Act, which, among other things, would require voter ID. A deadly heat wave is sweeping across Western Europe.
It is hot. Like, not just hot, like scorching heat.
The heat so extreme, the British Army's canceled the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace for the remainder of the week. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres at a global climate conference in London.
London isn't just calling. It's cooking.
Tourist attractions are closing early due to the heat. ABC's James Longman continues our coverage.
In France, it was the hottest day on record. Icons of Paris, the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre had to close early to keep tourists safe. With hundreds of schools closed and trains cancelled, crowds are flocking to lakes and rivers to beat the heat.
At least 45 deaths have been reported throughout Europe as temps soar into the triple digits. Unlike the United States, much of Europe lacks air conditioning. President Trump hosts the Great American State Fair kickoff celebration tonight. It'll happen on the National Mall. It will feature amusement rides, a military tribute, and even a rodeo. This is billed as the patriotic opening to 16 days of Freedom 250 celebrations in advance of America's birthday next week. Still to come on the Noon Report, Garrity challenges Shapiro, gas price gouging, and what a finish for the Phillies.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. A fine day underway. Changes arrive tomorrow, though. We'll have forecast details coming up in 10.
All right, Kevin, see you in about 10 minutes. Thank you. Let's check the stories making news where you live, all across New York and Pennsylvania. Gas prices are down about 60 cents a gallon since the truce with Iran was announced. Donnie Fox with AAA says, despite the ceasefire, fuel costs are still volatile across much of New York and Pennsylvania.
When prices drop, we don't quite see that quick responses. People want to see more longevity. They need that security sometimes to know that prices may stay or continue to drop before they make some changes.
The Trump administration's instructed the Justice Department to investigate alleged oil company gas gouging. He thinks the price at the pump should be a lot lower than it is right now. Pennsylvania Congressman Dan Muser agrees now that oil is trading at about $73 a barrel.
Because at $73 a barrel oil, we should be a good 25-30 cents lower at the gas pump.
Gas is averaging $4.07 a gallon right now in Pennsylvania. It's $4.19 on average in New York. Nationwide, the price at the pump is averaging $3.92 a gallon. The U.S. Justice Department is suing the state of New York over a controversial new law that forces ICE agents to demask while making arrests.
The new law was part of the state budget touted by Governor Kathy Hochul. Now the governor, along with Attorney General Letitia James and the state, are being sued. Hochul had said the law was passed to keep federal agents accountable, but the feds are calling the law blatantly unconstitutional and say it threatens the safety of federal officers. The governor reacting to the lawsuit, saying the law reflects New York's values and they won't be bullied into abandoning it. In New York, I'm Jonathan O'Halloran.
A southern tier community still in mourning after an arson fire at a motel Monday morning killed 6. It happened at the Knights Inn in Endwell outside Binghamton. Broome County used that motel to house the homeless. A 24-year-old suspect now facing 6 counts of manslaughter. He was staying at the motel when the fire started. Paula Perna with the United Way of Broome County says nearly $50,000 has been raised so far to assist the more than 70 people impacted by the fire.
It's not only important for the current need, the immediate needs, but the long-term needs of getting them resources and getting them rehoused and getting them things they need to get back on their feet.
Fire officials say smoke detectors were not working properly at that Knights Inn at the time of the fire. Broome County officials announced a couple weeks ago they were discontinuing the use of motels and hotels to house the homeless. As mentioned earlier, the results are in from New York primary elections last night, and Democratic Socialists scored big wins in the Big Apple. 3 far-left candidates defeated incumbent Democrats after receiving the political blessing from Socialist Mayor Zoran Mamdani.
For Mamdani, it solidifies his power in the Democratic Party and underscores the fact that he imposed major losses to the Democratic Party's establishment.
That's Fox's Brian Yanis.
In New York 13, the chair of the Hispanic Congressional Caucus loses his seat to Mamdani-backed Democratic Democratic Socialist Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier. Chevalier wants to abolish ICE in prisons and says all deportations are wrong, even for convicted murderers. She led anti-Israel protests in Columbia University.
The only statewide contest in New York was the Democratic primary for state comptroller. Five-term incumbent Tom DiNapoli cruised to victory in his first primary challenge in nearly 20 years. He'll face Republican Joseph Hernandez in November. It's been 36 years since a Republican has held that office. Pennsylvania's Republican gubernatorial candidate Stacey Garrity is challenging incumbent Democrat Josh Shapiro to 7 debates ahead of the November midterms. The Sayre, PA native says these debates will give Pennsylvania voters a better understanding of where the candidates stand on the issue. No word yet from Governor Shapiro on whether he'll accept the challenge. He has about $38 million in the bank to spend on his re-election campaign. Garrity has just over $1 million. A rally against AI data centers happened yesterday at the Pennsylvania State Capitol. Those in attendance say they felt betrayed by state lawmakers as well as the Shapiro administration, who they feel are rushing to get deals done without public input. Megan McDonough is president of Pennsylvania Food and Water Watch.
We are not overreacting. We are not anti-progress. We are anti-corruption. We are anti-secrecy. We are anti-being told that billionaire tech bros deserve more protection than the people who drink the water, breathe the air, pay the taxes, and live with the consequences.
Democrat Katie Muth says Pennsylvania is not a blank check for big tech.
When government fails to ask hard questions at the beginning, communities pay the price for generations. We cannot afford to repeat those mistakes, not with our water, not with our air, not with our families and our communities, and not with our future, because why? Pennsylvania is not for sale.
There is legislation in the Pennsylvania General Assembly to impose a 3-year moratorium on these massive facilities, which require tremendous amounts of water and energy. The sale of what used to be Wells College in Aurora, New York, has fallen through. The Hiawatha Institute for Indigenous Knowledge was unable to secure the $12.5 million needed to complete the sale. Wells College was located along the shores of Cayuga Lake and shut down 2 years ago after more than 150 years in business. Pennsylvania State Senator Lisa Boscolos proposing legislation that would limit screen times for kindergarten through second graders during the summer months. Here's Family Life's Sarah Harnish.
The bill would also restrict them from taking home school-issued devices and prevent schools from relying on them as a substitute for foundational early learning. But the bill would not restrict teachers from continuing computer science curriculum or technology-based coursework. It comes after a significant decline in statewide ELA proficiency scores, which fell below 50% for the first time in a decade last school year. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
The Livingston County Health Department's issued an advisory involving Conesus Lake. Potentially harmful algae blooms have been spotted on the western and eastern shorelines. Folks are urged to keep themselves and their animals out of the water where these blooms are present. There's no threat to the safety of the public water supply. The ribbon was cut Tuesday on the new home of the Buffalo Bills. New York Governor and Buffalo native Kathy Hochul on hand for the ceremony.
Let's go, Buffalo! Let's go!
The $2.1 billion Highmark Stadium is the largest construction project in the history of Western New York.
It's magical. We've waited a long time for this.
Bills spokesman Scott Radicic says the sleek design of the new stadium will make it one of the loudest in the NFL.
How do we get all the fans as close to the field and on top of the field as possible to create that intimidation when the sound system's playing, when you got 60,000 people, when they're all cheering? Like, that emotion and that energy is something that won't be replicated anywhere.
6,000 construction workers spent 3 years building the stadium. Bills owner Terry Pagula.
It's one thing to talk about it. It's one thing to get the money. It's another thing to get it done. So thank you.
The new Highmark Stadium features a natural grass field, state-of-the-art lighting, and top-of-the-line sound system. The Bills play their first regular season game there September 17th against the Detroit Lions. We got more sports next. The opening round of the NBA draft is now in the books. The Washington Wizards taking BYU's A.J. Debonsa first overall. The fearless forward is the first player in BYU history to go number one in the draft. The Utah Jazz nabbed Darren Peterson from Kansas second. Duke's Cameron Boozer went third to the Memphis Grizzlies. Major League Baseball action last night. What a finish in our nation's capital. The Philadelphia Phillies beat the Washington Nationals 14-9 in one of the craziest baseball games you will ever see. Connor Thomas with Locked On Phillies.
The Phillies win one of the wildest games of the Major League Baseball season. 8 runs in the 9th inning with 2 outs to put themselves up huge in one of the biggest rallies you'll ever see.
Brandon Marsh tied the game in the last inning, and Philadelphia never looked back from there. Phillies broadcaster Ben Thomas says they were literally 1 strike away from losing, and that's when the rally bats got going.
This is remarkable, incredible. Who would ever thought that this was going to happen with 2 outs? But the boys righted the ship, and they somehow mustered to string those hits together. 6 for 12 overall in the night with runners in scoring position. A lot of those coming in that 9th inning. But this is just one of those wins that you will look back on, when you're retired, sitting there watching the ball game someday. Remember that day on June 23rd when the Phillies came back and beat those Nationals with 2 outs? This is incredible.
Other action last night saw the Yankees double up the Tigers. 4-2 your final. That win stops a 3-game slide for the Bronx Bombers. The Mets fall to the Cubs at Citi Field 9-6. Pittsburgh losing to Seattle in interleague play 3-2 in that one. Group play continues at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Cristiano Ronaldo scored a pair of goals to lead Portugal to a dominant 5-0 win over Uzbekistan. Ronaldo's now the first player in FIFA Cup history to score in 6 different World Cups. Other action saw England play to a scoreless draw against Ghana. Croatia eliminated Panama. More matches on tap tonight. Canada will take on Switzerland. Morocco battles Haiti. Brazil's facing Scotland. And South Korea plays South Africa. New questions being raised about GLP-1 weight loss drugs and their potential to be used as performance-enhancing drugs for athletes. Here's Tammy Trujillo.
The weight loss drugs have become a popular health topic, but the focus on whether they can give an athlete a competitive edge stems from Serena Williams' official return to tennis after a 4-year hiatus. The 23-time Grand Slam winning superstar admitted to using a GLP-1 medication to get back in shape and drop over 30 pounds. Fitness expert Jillian Michaels and former pro tennis player Patrick McEnroe were asked to weigh in on the matter during an interview with Chris Cuomo, and both said they don't believe the medication will enhance performance. Michaels said that GLP-1s are not performance enhancers like stimulants or steroids. Rather, the benefits are likely from the halo effect of her weight loss. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
Thank you, Tammy. Still to come on the Noon Report, a midweek edition. Socialist sweep in New York City, coping with anxiety, and weapons inspectors in Iran.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Throughout Scripture, God hears and answers the prayers of His people. King Solomon called on all of Israel to pray at the consecration of the temple. Nehemiah asked God for forgiveness and for courage to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And the apostles prayed for boldness to testify to the resurrection and the lordship of Christ. More recently in human history, various awakenings and revivals have been accompanied by commitments to prayer. That's because God chooses to respond to the appeals of His people as He accomplishes His will. In that same hope, the organizers of Fidelity Month have called for a day of prayer on June 24th. I recently talked with Princeton University professor Robert George, who explained why he started Fidelity Month back in 2023. Here's what he had to say.
The data showed that the belief of Americans in the importance of some of the traditional values that had been our sources of unity and strength as a people had diminished very significantly. Right down in a line like that. The belief in the importance of religion, belief in the importance of fidelity in marriage, belief in the importance of patriotism, love of country. Those were way down. The only thing that Americans believe in the importance of went up with respect to was money. More Americans think that having a lot of money is more important. Now, I want to be clear. I want everybody to have a nice life, materially speaking. I want everyone to be prosperous. I want people to be able to take care of themselves and their families and have a few luxuries. But gosh, the love of money should not be on the same scale as love of God, love of your spouse and your children, love of our country. We have a day for this and a week for that and a month for the other thing. Why don't we take some period of time, let's say a month, and encourage our fellow citizens, our fellow Americans, to rededicate themselves to the basic principle of fidelity to God, fidelity to our spouses and to our families.
Look, if we're to be people who are faithful to our families, to our nation, to our God, we will need His help. The good news is that God promises to help those who ask. So let's ask. We invite you to fast and pray the fidelity prayer for our country in accordance with your own religious traditions. To assist in the process, a Fidelity Day prayer has been written. Obviously, it can be prayed at any time, but please take time, June 24th, to offer it to God together along with so many others. Here's how it goes. Almighty and merciful Lord, we praise you and thank you for all you have given us in your great and unmerited generosity. Please help us remember who we are and whose we are. Grant us the grace to unite as one people in turning back to you with all of our hearts, with all of our souls, and with all of our minds. Cleanse us of all that separates us from you, and help us to cultivate the virtues we need this day and always, so that we may grow in fidelity to you, who are always faithful, and to our spouses and families, and to our communities and country, and thereby live in accordance with your holy will. In your boundless mercy and loving kindness, Lord, please heal and restore our land. Amen. For more about Fidelity Month and the Fidelity Month Day of Prayer, please visit fidelitymonth.com. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Appreciate it, John. Thank you. Outside we go. Weather where you live with meteorologist Kevin Williams.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast for this afternoon. Nice. Plenty of sunshine, gentle breezes, low humidity. The high temperature ranging in the 70s to near 80. Should be a nice evening. Clouds will start to gather tonight, and there could be a late night shower in northwest Pennsylvania and western New York. Low temps 50s and low 60s. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy. Showers will overspread the rest of the region. Could be a thunderstorm. High temperatures 70s to near 80. Friday, clouds, some sun, a couple showers, and high temperatures in the 70s to near 80.
All right, thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. Here's what's happening Wednesday, June 24th. Socialism, the big winner in last night's primary elections in New York. 3 far-left candidates knocked out establishment Democrats in New York City. Correspondent Madeline Rivera.
New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani says the results of Tuesday's primaries were the beginning of a political movement.
Fox News political commentator Jason Chaffetz.
Gone is the Democratic Party of the past. It's not in existence anymore. I just love the fact that those that preach the most tolerance, they're the least tolerant among us.
One of the candidates who won last night beat a 5-term incumbent who chaired the Hispanic Congressional Caucus. Another defeated Democrat, Congressman Dan Goldman, led the first Trump impeachment trial. President Trump says nuclear inspectors are part of the deal with Iran to end the war. Reporter Trey Yinks.
The head of the IAEA said there will be inspections of Iranian nuclear sites, marking a major milestone in the negotiations between the United States and Iran. He said the priority remains locating the highly enriched uranium that is currently buried inside of Iranian territory.
The commander-in-chief meeting today at the White House with the Secretary General of NATO to talk more about ending the war. He'll also have lunch with Senate Republicans, many of whom voted last night to rein in his war powers. That vote was largely symbolic because, according to the White House, the war is already over with. Camp Mystic has filed for Chapter Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. That Texas Christian camp is where 25 girls and 2 counselors died last summer in flash flooding. Families of the victims filed a lawsuit in the fall, saying camp operators failed to take the necessary steps to protect the girls as floodwaters rose on the 4th of July. A suffocating heat wave has gripped Europe. Triple-digit temperatures will linger through the end of the week. NBC's Danielle Mahanjan is more from Paris.
Scorching temperatures are gripping much of Europe. From Paris to Madrid to London, locals and tourists are scrambling to stay cool, lining up for fans and turning to famous fountains to beat the heat. France suffering through its hottest day since records began in 1947. The extreme heat here also turning deadly, with authorities saying at least 45 people have drowned just this past week. The heat wave forcing iconic Paris tourist attractions like the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre to close early. How would you describe the heat in Paris today?
Unbearably hot. It's just ridiculous.
In the UK, a rare red weather warning now coming into force, with hundreds of schools shutting and National Rail urging passengers to only travel if absolutely necessary.
Only about 20% of all the households in Europe have air conditioning. More history made at the World Cup. Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo's become the first professional soccer player to score in 6 different World Cups. He netted 2 goals in Portugal's 5-0 win over Uzbekistan yesterday. Team USA will take on Turkey tomorrow night. You're listening to the Noon Report, a midweek edition on Family Life.
Keeping calm in a world of worry. Welcome back to another edition of Real Answers, a regular Wednesday feature during the Family Life Noon Report, where we discuss the issues that matter to families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. I was worried you wouldn't join me, Chris, but welcome back.
Well, don't do that. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, that's good. You know, Scripture is full of admonitions and encouragement when it comes to fear and anxiety. Perhaps the best known, at least to me, is Matthew 6:34. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. And each day has enough trouble of its own, and it's certainly true these days, isn't it?
It certainly is, and honestly, I believe that it just seems like every day there's something else that society, secular society and the media wants us to worry about. And I would say that most Christians are well aware of the fact that the Bible tells us not to worry. But the big question is, when it feels overly burdensome, what do we do to deal with it?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. As Christians, it almost feels like sinful to worry or have anxiety, but that's not really the case, is it?
We want to make sure that we're not taking that admonition from God and the fact that we can experience anxiety or worry as a judgment from Him. He wants us to obviously turn our eyes, especially our minds, and focus our minds and our hearts and our thoughts on Him and His truth. And I want to make sure that I'm very clear about saying, too, with regards to anxiety and we'll say concern, is that there is a proper place for it. Just to give you an example, if you are a student and you have a large math exam coming up, let's say it's 2 days away and you have yet to crack a book open and you're starting to feel anxiety. Well, guess what? You probably should. That anxiety is trying to prompt you to actually do what you need to do. Mm-hmm. So anxiety, the problem is when anxiety becomes out of control and is at levels that are not warranted by a set of given circumstances, and that's when we get ourselves into trouble. Mm-hmm. And if allowing that to continue can actually obviously create patterns and can create habits and can create the system, that we're wired to feel anxiety at certain times to keep us safe and to prompt us for action. But when that system is becoming overloaded and it's firing at times that it shouldn't be, that's when there's an issue. That's kind of what we're talking about today.
I kind of lumped in fear and anxiety there. Not really exactly the same thing necessarily.
Not necessarily, depending on how we handle it, but they're very closely related. Anxiety can be almost like a computer. You can be running in the background and you can kind of feel this level of dread or this level of negativity, but you can't always put your finger on what's causing that.
You're listening to Real Answers. I'm Mark Webster, along with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson, talking about dealing with fear and or anxiety. You find a lot of Christians in particular struggle to even admit having anxiety just because it might be perceived as a lack of faith.
I do run into that. Not probably as much as you would think. I think more folks of faith don't like the idea of taking a medication. It's always good, I think, to try going to a counselor first and trying to work it out that way. Sometimes people's anxiety is so extreme and so debilitating that if you can kind of rein it in a little bit first in conjunction with counseling, it can really be incredibly helpful. And again, it doesn't mean that it's a cop-out. It doesn't mean that your faith is weak, but it can be a useful tool in helping you to get to the bottom of it. But I would say that a lot more Christians believe that, that their faith isn't strong enough or that they shouldn't be taking medication. Well, first of all, if clearing up some of the confusion and some of the excessive head chatter helps you to actually focus more on, let's say, your quiet time and your prayer times and actually, being able to concentrate on what you're reading in the Bible, I would say that's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of the solid anti-anxiety medications that are around now, most of them are not habit forming. And of course, if there's any concerns or questions about any of those potentials, always ask your doctor.
Final question then. What are some of the signs? When is it time to call in a third party, a counselor, when things are perhaps starting to get the best of you?
If you've tried to just, again, cope with stress and anxiety on your own and you're just really having a hard time and nothing seems to be working right, then, don't hesitate to look for a counselor. Of course, a Christian counselor that is going to be solidly grounded in biblical truth, because that is something that Christians have that others don't, and that is hope beyond the present circumstances. We have a hope that is not going to fade. We have a hope knowing that things are only going to get better, in the future, on this side or the other. And the reality is folks that are open to Christian principles, I believe, in all the years I've been doing this as a career, I believe really have the best chance of getting through current difficulties, regardless of what level they are, because they know where their future lies. So I think looking for a Christian counselor, if you feel like you've exhausted all other opportunities for, dealing with anxiety on your own without a little bit of help, definitely is what you need to do.
Yeah, I don't know how you cope in this modern world without having that.
Me either.
To go on for you. You've been listening to Real Answers, a Wednesday feature of the Family Life Noon Report, where we discuss the issues important to families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. Thanks as always, Chris.
You're welcome, Mark. Thank you.
All right, good stuff today. Thanks, guys. You can download all our Real Answers podcasts, by the way, including this one on anxiety, online anytime. Just go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org. And finally, at noon for Wednesday, you and I plan to spend big bucks celebrating America's 250th birthday next week. The National Retail Federation predicts 4th of July spending will total $9.5 billion on food alone. That's a lot of burgers. Nearly half of us plan to spend money on fireworks too, because what's the 4th of July without some pyrotechnics? And that's our world, the world we live in. Wednesday, June 24th. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.